The cause of this scantiness in such a fertile and populous valley was, that the number of caravans which had preceded us had drawn heavily from their stores for the up marches. On the 14th we crossed the Ungerengeri, which here flows southerly to the southern extremity of the valley, where it bends easterly as far as Kisemo. After crossing the river here, fordable at all times and only 20 yards in breadth, we had another mile of the valley with its excessively moist soil and rank growth of grass. It then ascended into a higher elevation, and led through a forest of maparamusi, tamarind, tamarisk, acacia, and the blooming mimosa. This ascent was continued for 2 hours, when we stood upon the spine of the largest ridge, where we could obtain free views of the wooded plain below and the distant ridges of Kisemo, which we had but lately left. A descent of a few hundred feet terminated in a deep but dry mtoni with a sandy bed, on the other side of which we had to regain the elevation we had lost, and a similar country opened into view until we found a newly made boma with well built huts of grass near a pool of water, which we at once occupied as a halting place for the night. The cart gave us considerable trouble. Not even our strongest donkey, though it carried with ease on its back 196 pounds, could draw the cart with a load of only 225 pounds weight. Early on the morning of the 15th we broke camp and started for Mikesh. By 8:30 a.m. we were ascending the southern face of the Kira Peak. When we had gained the height of 200 feet above the level of the surrounding country, we were gratified with a magnificent view of a land whose soil knows no Sabbath. After traversing the spine of a ridge abutting against the southern slope of Kira, we again descended into the little valley of Kiwrima, the first settlement we meet in Udoe, where there is always an abundant supply of water. 2 miles west of Kiwrima is Mikesh. On the 16th we reached Ulagalla, after a few hours' march. Ulagalla is the name of a district, or a portion of a district, lying between the mountains of Uruguru, which bound it southerly, and the mountains of Udoe, lying northerly and parallel with them, and but 10 miles apart. The principal part of the basin thus formed is called Ulagalla. Mahale is the next settlement, and here we found ourselves in the territory of Wasagua. On this march we were hemmed in by mountains, on our left by those of the Uruguru, on our right by those of Udoe and Usagua, a most agreeable and welcome change to us after the long miles of monotonous level we had hitherto seen. When tired of looking into the depths of the forest that still ran on either side of the road, we had but to look up to the mountain's base, to note its strange trees, its plants, and vari-coloured flowers. We had but to raise our heads to vary this pleasant occupation by observing the lengthy and sinuous spine of the mountains, and mentally report upon their outline, their spurs, their projections and ravines, their bulging rocks and deep clefts, and, above all, the dark green woods clothing them from summit to base. And when our attention was not required for the mundane task of regarding the donkeys' packs, or the pace of the cautious stepping pagazis, it was grateful to watch the vapours play about the mountain summits, to see them fold into fleecy crowns and fantastic clusters, dissolve, gather together into a pall that threatened rain, and sail away again before the brightening sun. At Mahale was the 4th caravan under Maganga, with 3 more sick men, who turned with eager eyes to myself, the dispenser of medicine, as I approached. Salvos of small arms greeted me, and a present of rice and ears of Indian corn for roasting were awaiting my acceptance. But, as I told Maganga, I would have preferred to hear that his party were 8 or 10 marches ahead. At this camp also we met Selim bin Rashid, bound eastward, with a huge caravan carrying 300 ivory tusks. This good Arab, besides welcoming the newcomer with a present of rice, gave me news of Livingstone. He had met the old traveller at Ujiji, had lived in the next but to him for 2 weeks, described him as looking old, with long grey moustaches and beard, just recovered from severe illness, looking very wan. When fully recovered, Livingstone intended to visit a country called Manyama, by way of Marungu. The valley of the Ungerengeri, with Mahale, exhibits wonderful fertility. Its crops of matama were of the tallest, and its Indian corn would rival the best crops ever seen in the Arkansas bottoms. The numerous mountain-fed streams rendered the great depth of loam very sloppy, in consequence of which several accidents occurred before we reached the camp, such as wetting cloth, mildewing tea, watering sugar, and rusting tools; but prompt attention to these necessary things saved us from considerable loss. There was a slight difference noticed in the demeanour and bearing of the Wasagua, compared with the Wadoe, Wakami, and Wukwe heretofore seen. There was none of that civility which we had been until now pleased to note. Their expressed desire to barter was accompanied with insolent hints that we ought to take their produce at their own prices. If we remonstrated, they became angry; retorting fiercely, impatient of opposition, they flew into passion, and would gibe in threats. This strange conduct, so opposite to that of the calm and gentle Wukwe, may be excellently illustrated by comparing the manner of the hot-headed Greek with that of the cool and collected German. Necessity compelled us to purchase eatables of them, and, to the credit of the country and its productions, be it said, their honey had the peculiar flavour of that of famed Hymettus. Following the latitudinal valley of the Ungerengeri, within 2 hours on the following morning we passed close under the wall of the capital of Useguhha, Simbamwenni. The first view of the walled town at the western foot of the Uruguru Mountains, with its fine valley abundantly beautiful, watered by 2 rivers, and several pellucid streams of water distilled by the dew and cloud-enriched heights around, was one that we did not anticipate to meet in Eastern Africa. In Mazanderan, Persia, such a scene would have answered our expectations, but here it was totally unexpected. The town may contain a population of 3,000, having about 1,000 houses. Being so densely crowded, perhaps 5,000 would more closely approximate. The houses in the town are eminently African, but of the best type of construction. The fortifications are on an Arabic-Persic model, combining Arab neatness with Persian plan. Through a ride of 950 miles in Persia, I never met a town outside of the great cities better fortified than Simbamwenni. In Persia the fortifications were of mud. Even those of Casvin, Teheran, Ispahan, and Shiraz. Those of Simbamwenni are of stone, pierced with 2 rows of loopholes for musketry. The area of the town is about half a square mile, its plan being quadrangular. Well-built towers of stone guard each corner. 4 gates, one facing each cardinal point, and set half-way between the several towers, permit ingress and egress for its inhabitants. The gates are closed with solid square doors made of African teak, and carved with the infinitesimally fine and complicated devices of the Arabs, from which I suspect that the doors were made either at Zanzibar or on the coast, and conveyed to Simbamwenni plank by plank. Yet as there is much communication between Bagamoyo and Simbamwenni, it is just possible that native artisans are the authors of this ornate workmanship, as several doors chiselled and carved in the same manner, though not quite so elaborately, were visible in the largest houses. The palace of the Sultan is after the style of those on the coast, with long sloping roof, wide eaves, and verandah in front.